Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at something that might make you see yourself and your role as a leader in a whole new light.
Ooh.
Self-deception.
Self-deception. Okay.
We are going to be unpacking some fascinating insights from the book Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute.
Great book.
And we're going to try to understand just how the sneaky phenomenon works, the impact it has on us, and how recognizing it can totally transform your relationships and leadership skills.
Yeah, it's something that it really is everywhere. And the book uses this really clever metaphor of the box to describe the mental state of self-deception.
Okay, the box, I'm intrigued but also a little worried.
Yeah.
What is this box?
Well, imagine a baby crawling under a piece of furniture and getting stuck and freaking out.
Oh, no.
The harder she struggles, the more trapped she becomes. And what's so fascinating about this is she doesn't even realize she created the problem in the first place.
So it's like we are blind to our own role in creating the very problems we are facing.
Exactly. The book calls it insistent blindness. We simply can't see our own flaws, even when they're obvious to everyone else.
And this can have a huge impact on our relationships, especially when we are talking about leadership roles.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does this insistent blindness play out when we are in a leadership context?
Well, think about someone who's in a leadership position and they truly believe that they are a strong leader. They delegate tasks, they give directions, but their team is constantly hitting roadblocks, missing deadlines, and feeling really demoralized.
Okay, I've definitely seen that happen.
Right.
But if this leader is genuinely trying, where's the self-deception?
Well, it often lies in how the leader views their team. The book actually highlights a key distinction. Do we see others as people or as objects? When we're stuck in the box, we tend to see others as objects, obstacles, problems to be solved, or simply irrelevant to our needs.
Wow, that's a really powerful distinction. I'm starting to see how this can be such a blind spot for leaders. It's like they're so focused on their own goals and objectives that they lose sight of the human beings they're actually working with.
Precisely. And that lack of empathy and connection can have a ripple effect through the entire team.
Now, you mentioned earlier an example from the book about this lawyer named Bud Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, Bud.
Does his story illustrate this people versus objects idea?
Absolutely. So, Bud, he believes he's a hard worker. But he's constantly making mistakes and creating more work for others.
Yeah.
He'll miss key information because he is so focused on getting home to his family, puts his briefcase on the empty seat next to him on the train so no one will sit there.
Oh, Bud.
He's treating those around him as inconveniences rather than, individual people.
It sounds like he is completely missing the impact of his actions on those around him.
Yeah, he's operating in that self-deceptive state, so focused on his own needs and goals while overlooking the needs of others.
And that's a dangerous place for a leader to be. So this box of self-deception can have some pretty serious consequences. Is there a historical example that illustrates just how impactful this can be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a shocking case of Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis and the Vienna General Hospital back in the mid-19th century. 2 maternity wards had drastically different mortality rates.
Oh, wow.
Despite having the same conditions.
Same conditions, different death rates. There had to be some underlying factor at play.
Right. It turned out to be a case of self-deception with life or death consequences.
Oh, my gosh.
Dr. Semmelweis discovered that the doctors in the ward with the higher death rate were also working with cadavers.
Ah.
So they were transferring germs unknowingly, but they were so focused on their medical practices, they couldn't see how they might be contributing to the problem.
Wow. So it took thinking outside the box to uncover the truth?
Right.
And in this case, the cost of self-deception was incredibly high?
Extremely. It highlights the importance of challenging our assumptions and being willing to look at ourselves honestly, even when it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so we've established that self-deception can be pretty dangerous, especially for leaders.
Yeah.
But how do we even get into the box in the first place?
Right.
What leads to this state of insistent blindness?
Well, the book introduces another crucial concept.
Okay.
Self-betrayal.
Self-betrayal.
And it's essentially acting against what we know we should do for another person.
Okay.
It might seem like small things, like not holding the elevator door for someone who is rushing to catch it.
Yeah.
Or leaving a tired partner to deal with a crying baby, even though, you should help.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely relate to those scenarios. We've all been there.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, how does this seemingly small act of self-betrayal lead to this larger problem of self-deception?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So when we betray ourselves, We feel a sense of dissonance, like a conflict between our actions and our values.
Mm-hmm.
And to ease that discomfort, we start justifying our actions,
Uh-huh.
often blaming the other person and creating a distorted view of reality.
So we're creating stories to protect our ego and make ourselves feel better.
Likely.
But in doing so, we're actually deepening our self-deception and further solidifying the walls of that box.
Exactly. It creates a vicious cycle. Self-betrayal leads to self-deception, making it even harder to see the situation clearly and act in ways that are aligned with our values.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. We've explored how self-deception manifests, particularly in leadership, and how even small acts of self-betrayal can lead us down this dangerous path.
Right.
But let's get practical. What can we actually do about it?
Okay.
How do we break free from the box and start seeing ourselves and others more clearly?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, there is no quick fix.
Oh,
But the first step is recognizing that some of the most common approaches simply don't work.
okay, I'm all ears.
Look,
Let's talk about what doesn't work when it comes to escaping the self-deception trap. What are some of the common pitfalls we need to avoid?
okay, let's do it. So one common trap is trying to change others. We tell ourselves, if only they would do things differently, then everything would be fine.
It's so tempting to focus on what others need to change, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we're feeling so frustrated or stuck.
Absolutely. But here's the catch. Even if we manage to change someone else's behavior, we're still in the box.
Hmm.
We haven't addressed the root cause, our own self-deception.
So it's an inside job. We can't force others out of their boxes. We have to do the work ourselves.
Right.
Now, what about just like trying to avoid conflict altogether?
Okay.
Would that help us steer clear of self-betrayal and maintain some sense of harmony?
It might seem like a good strategy in the moment, but avoiding conflict can actually backfire.
Okay.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It might mask the problem temporarily, but it doesn't actually heal the underlying issue.
So sweeping things under the rug isn't the answer either. It seems like we need to find a way to address those difficult situations head on, but in a way that doesn't perpetuate the cycle of self-deception.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of people turn to communication techniques. Active listening, nonviolent communication, and so on.
Okay, those sound helpful.
Yeah.
So is that the key? Just mastering the right communication skills?
They're incredibly valuable tools, no doubt.
Okay.
But even the best communication techniques won't work if we're still in the box. Imagine trying to have a productive conversation with someone while simultaneously viewing them as an obstacle or an annoyance.
I see what you mean. It's like trying to navigate a maze while wearing a blindfold. No matter how good our communication skills are, we're still operating from a place of limited vision.
Exactly. It's not about the techniques themselves. It's about the mindset we bring to the interaction.
So we need to fundamentally shift our perspective to step outside of that box of self-deception. But that sounds incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
How do we actually make that shift happen?
Well, the key, according to the Arbinger Institute, is to stop resisting others. It's about recognizing our own role in the situation, taking responsibility for our actions and seeing others as people worthy of our respect and consideration.
That sounds simple in theory, but I imagine it's much harder to put into practice.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we're feeling wronged or frustrated in a relationship.
Absolutely. It takes effort and a willingness to challenge our own perceptions. But the payoff is enormous.
So what does this shift look like in a real-world scenario? Let's say I'm in a conflict with a colleague and I'm feeling frustrated and resentful.
Sure.
How do I move from a place of resistance to a place of understanding?
First, acknowledge your own feelings. Don't try to suppress them or pretend they don't exist. Then, instead of focusing on what your colleague is doing wrong, try to understand their perspective. What might be motivating their behavior? What are their needs and concerns?
It sounds like a process of shifting from judgment to curiosity. Instead of labeling them as wrong, we're trying to understand the why behind their actions.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective can be transformative.
Okay.
It allows us to see the situation with more clarity and compassion, and it opens up the possibility of finding a solution that works for everyone involved.
This brings us back to the importance of leadership.
Right.
We've talked about how self-deception can be a major obstacle for leaders. But how does this concept of stopping resistance apply to leadership specifically?
Well, when leaders are stuck in the box, they tend to lead through coercion and manipulation. They're focused on getting others to do what they want rather than inspiring and empowering them. They treat their team members as objects to be managed rather than people to be supported and developed.
It's like they're playing a game of chess, using people as pawns to achieve their own objectives.
Right. And that kind of leadership creates a toxic environment where people feel resentful, disengaged, and ultimately less productive. But when leaders operate outside the box, they lead through genuine influence. They build trust, foster collaboration, and create a culture where people feel valued and respected.
It sounds like the difference between a boss and a leader. A boss commands while a leader inspires.
Exactly. And that ability to inspire and empower others stems from a place of genuine connection and respect, a recognition that everyone has something valuable to contribute.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
We've uncovered how self-deception impacts leadership, the dangers of common approaches to overcoming it, and the power of shifting our mindset from resistance to understanding.
It's all about cultivating self-awareness and challenging our own perceptions. The more we understand ourselves, the better equipped we are to build healthy, productive relationships with others.
And that's really the foundation of effective leadership, isn't it?
Right.
Leading with authenticity, empathy, and a genuine desire to bring out the best in those around us.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. And that starts with our own willingness to step outside the box and see the world with fresh eyes.
This deep dive has been a powerful reminder that we always have the capacity to learn, grow, and become more effective leaders. But I'm curious, are there any practical tips or exercises we can use to help us recognize and overcome self-deception in our daily lives?
Absolutely. The Arbinger Institute offers a wealth of resources and workshops focused on helping people develop greater self-awareness and build more authentic relationships. But even without those resources, there are some simple things you can do on your own.
Okay, I'm eager to hear more about those.
Yeah.
What are some concrete steps we can take to start putting these ideas into practice? Okay, I'm ready for those practical tips. Give me something I can actually use.
One of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do is start paying attention to your language. Notice how often you blame others, make excuses for your own behavior, or minimize the impact of your actions.
It sounds like a form of mindfulness, but focused on our language patterns.
Exactly. When you catch yourself falling into those patterns, pause and ask yourself, is this an accurate reflection of reality, or am I telling myself a story to protect my ego?
Yeah. It's like holding up a mirror to our thoughts and words, checking for distortions.
Right. Another helpful exercise is to practice empathy.
Okay.
When you find yourself in a conflict or feeling resistant towards someone, take a moment to step into their shoes.
Okay.
Imagine their perspective, their motivations,
Yeah.
their fears and aspirations.
That reminds me of something you said earlier about seeing people as people rather than objects. It's about recognizing their humanity, their unique experiences and perspectives.
Precisely. And the more we can cultivate that sense of empathy and understanding, the less likely we are to fall into the trap of self-deception.
So it's about challenging our assumptions, checking our language, and practicing empathy. Those are all great starting points.
Right.
But what about those times when we realize we're deeply stuck in the box, when we've been operating from a place of self-deception for a long time? How do we start to unravel those deeply ingrained patterns?
Well, that's where seeking outside support can be incredibly valuable. Therapy coaching, or even joining a support group, can provide a safe space to explore those patterns and develop healthier ways of relating to ourselves and others. The key is to find someone you trust, someone who can hold up a mirror to your blind spots and challenge you to grow.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've explored self-deception from multiple angles, how it works, how it impacts our lives, especially as leaders, and most importantly, what we can do to overcome it.
And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Self-awareness is an ongoing process, and there will be times when you fall back into old patterns. The important thing is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep striving to see yourself and others more clearly.
That's a great reminder. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And as we become more aware of our own self-deception, we're better equipped to lead with authenticity, empathy, and genuine connection.
Exactly. And that's a gift not only to ourselves, but to everyone around us.
This has been an incredible conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
We've learned so much about the insidious nature of self-deception and the transformative power of self-awareness. Thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of human behavior. We hope you've gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own life and leadership journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.